What if I told you a brand new track from rap legends Clipse, featuring Kendrick Lamar, vanished overnight? Picture this. Chains and Whips, a fire collab between Pusha T and K. Teased at a Louis Vuitton show, promising high, drama, then silence. No drop, no Spotify, just shock and confusion. Something bigger was at play. Something pulled threads behind the scenes. And when Clipse dropped this explosive news, the rap world gasped. Stay with me, because we're about to uncover how UMG, draped in power and profits, allegedly censored a song featuring two of Drake's fiercest foes. Why would a mega label, home to Drake himself, step in and step hard? What if this wasn't just corporate caution, but covert protection for one of their top earners? Here's where it gets darker. Pusha T didn't just take a hit, he paid big. A 7-figure exit, walked away from Def Jam, broke free. All because he refused to mute art. Gone. The new album, Let God Sort 'Em Out, now lives with Roc Nation, set to drop July 11th. But the question burning everyone up, what exactly did that verse say? Because Kendrick's line wasn't even dissing Drake. Yet suddenly the optics alone were too risky. Did Drake pull strings? Did UMG shift allies? And why did Clipse, with no warning, vanish from their longtime label? You'll hear Pusha's own words soon. Words of defiance, betrayal, and clarity that expose power plays far bigger than a missing track. But let's rewind the tape and unpack the backstory. Here's the untold feud that leads straight to this moment. Before a track got silenced, before legal shots were fired, and way before any lawsuit made headlines, there was a war already brewing. And it wasn't just personal, it was historic. Drake versus Pusha T wasn't a typical rap beef. It was scorched earth. It started subtly, with slick bars and low-key shade. But in 2018, it blew sky high when Pusha dropped The Story of Adidon, a ruthless expose that stopped the internet in its tracks. He didn't just diss Drake, he dismantled him. Exposed secrets that even hardcore fans didn't know. And when Drake clapped back with Duppy Freestyle, many thought it'd be just another sparring match. Instead, it turned nuclear. Pusha didn't blink. He revealed Drake had a hidden child, questioned his character, and did it all while wearing a smirk. The track was so brutal, even Drake admitted it crossed the line. That wasn't just a diss, it was career-threatening. Since then, every interaction, every verse, every feature involving these two artists has been studied like a crime scene. Who's firing shots? Who's ducking? Fast forward to today, and you'll realize that nothing in this industry happens by chance. Especially not the disappearance of a Kendrick Lamar verse on a Clipse album, right as the tension between Drake and Kendrick explodes. Coincidence? Or calculated? Because what happened after Adidon wasn't the end. It was just the start. What kind of verse could cause a label worth billions to panic? That's the question that exploded across social media after Clipse premiered Chains and Whips at Pharrell's Louis Vuitton fashion show. The crowd wasn't just vibing, they were stunned. Kendrick Lamar came in with a verse so razor sharp, people thought he was firing another lyrical missile in the ongoing Drake war. But when the footage hit the internet, the track disappeared. No Spotify release, no Apple Music drop, not even a snippet on Clipse's socials. This wasn't a clearance issue. This was something deeper. Quiet calls were made. Executives went dark. According to insiders, Universal Music Group, home to both Drake and Clipse via Def Jam, demanded Kendrick's verse be censored or scrapped entirely. The official reason? Conflict of interest. But the industry saw something else. Fear. UMG wasn't just protecting business. They were protecting an asset. A global artist with billions tied to his name. Drake. Kendrick didn't protest. Pusha didn't bend. He made one thing clear. He wasn't cutting that verse. And with that refusal, the track was shelved indefinitely. But the price of that defiance? That's where things get expensive. Most artists would have taken the deal. Trim the verse, dodge the controversy, and keep the machine running. But Pusha T isn't most artists. When UMG told him to either mute Kendrick or kill the track, Pusha didn't even flinch. To him, that verse wasn't just a feature, it was a declaration, a line in the sand. Def Jam thought he'd compromise, but Pusha wasn't here for industry politics. He was here for legacy. So, when the demand came down from the top, he made a decision most would never dare. He said no. No edits, no cleanups, no silencing Kendrick's fire. UMG didn't just shelve Chains and Whips, they shelved Clipse, the whole project. Then came the final blow. Def Jam quietly cut ties. But Pusha didn't just walk away. He bought his freedom. Sources say he paid a 7-figure sum, out of pocket, to exit the label's grip. No drama, no public meltdown. Just a clean, brutal exit. And what came next pulled a new giant into the ring. When the heat turned up, Pusha didn't blink. He walked out of Def Jam with fire in his chest and unfinished business in his hands. And instead of retreating, he marched straight into the arms of a label with no loyalty to Drake, Roc Nation. Jay-Z's empire didn't just welcome Clipse, they amplified them. No filters, no interference, no censors. Roc Nation saw what this album could be, a cultural flashpoint. Pusha and No Malice weren't just finishing a record, they were reclaiming the narrative. Let God Sort 'Em Out was back in motion, fully intact, fully dangerous, and now it had a confirmed release date, July 11th. The exact day Clipse would finally answer the industry's silence with pure, unfiltered rap. But that move exposed something deeper. If Roc Nation could give Clipse creative freedom, why couldn't Def Jam? What exactly was UMG afraid of? Because while Pusha found freedom, Drake found himself in a legal brawl with the very machine that once protected him. Just when it looked like Drake was untouchable, he filed a lawsuit that flipped the industry on its head. Drake versus UMG. The very label that allegedly pulled Kendrick's verse to protect him was now the target of his fury. Drake claimed UMG unfairly boosted Kendrick's diss track, Not Like Us. His team alleged bots were used, streams were bought, playlist placements were manipulated. He painted UMG as the enemy, even though it had shielded him for over a decade. But here's the contradiction. While UMG was accused of inflating Kendrick's attacks, they were also accused of burying Pusha's. So which is it? Are they sabotaging Drake or saving him? Some believe this lawsuit was a strategic misfire, a distraction, an attempt to look like a victim when the walls were closing in. And others think it exposed a deeper truth, that the label wasn't loyal to anyone, just profit. And the person who knew exactly how to use that chaos? Pusha T and his next move? It shook the silence. While Drake launched lawsuits and UMG hid behind closed doors, Pusha T stepped into the light. In a surgical interview with GQ, he confirmed what fans had only speculated. Yes, Kendrick's verse existed. Yes, it caused panic. And yes, UMG demanded it be removed. Why? They didn't want their golden goose tarnished, Pusha said. He didn't have to name Drake. The implication thundered through the internet. He called the censorship cowardice. He labeled Drake's lawsuit a cheap art protection plan, and he accused the label of deciding who wins before anyone raps a single bar. Pusha wasn't just throwing shade. He was exposing a system, one that picks champions, silences, threats, and scripts outcomes. His tone wasn't angry, it was clear, confident, and it sent one message. You tried to silence me. I'm louder now. The impact? Fans went digging, and what they uncovered next took things from rumor to revolution. It started as whispers, then came TikToks, then came Reddit essays. Fans weren't just watching, they were investigating. They asked the right question. If Kendrick didn't diss Drake, why block the verse? What was UMG so afraid of? The theories spread fast. Drake used his weight at UMG to pull the track. The Clipse-Kendrick combo was too risky during a feud. The censorship was strategic, not protective, but preemptive. One theory took over. The lawsuit was a smokescreen. While Drake sued UMG publicly, fans believed he was still pulling strings behind the curtain. But the darkest theory? That Chains and Whips wasn't the only track. That more verses, even entire sessions, were buried, lost before we ever heard them. And suddenly, fans started noticing signs, hidden messages, subtle clues. A trail that may have been left behind on purpose. Before Clipse ever confirmed the story, they were already talking. Quietly, cryptically. A single-word tweet from Pusha. Patience. No link. No photo. Just silence. Later, fans noticed something odd. An early version of the Let God Sort 'Em Out artwork had flames in the background. The updated version? Muted. Cold. Censored. In a now viral clip from Paris Fashion Week, Pusha is asked if the album is done. His answer, done isn't always allowed. Chilling in hindsight, fans replayed show footage, dissected lyrics, and found bars like, they let the cash cow graze while they muzzle the wolves. Labels fold when fire gets close. These weren't metaphors, they were warnings, breadcrumbs, and they weren't just about a single song. They were about an industry where silence is strategy, and truth has to hide in plain sight. This wasn't just a label mishap. It was a calculated silence, a decision, a line drawn in the sand. Def Jam dropped Clipse. No statement, no explanation, just a quiet exile. UMG refused comment, refused accountability. But their message was clear. We protect the money, not the message, not the music, not even the artist. What happens when labels stop acting like neutral platforms and start functioning like bodyguards for the highest earner? When they censor before a song drops just to preserve profit? Roc Nation shattered that wall. They backed Clipse. They restored what was erased, but their move did something else. It embarrassed UMG. It exposed a system terrified of its own artists. Now, with July 11th approaching, the question becomes, will they try to block this again? Or are they too late? Every great album has its closer. But Clipse didn't just close Let God Sort 'Em Out. They forged it as a final testament, not to fame, not to sales, but to survival, resistance, and legacy. Pusha T isn't chasing the charts. He's chasing the last word. This project isn't just a return, it's a resurrection. And Kendrick's involvement? It's not a feature. It's a flag planted in the middle of a battlefield that's been boiling for years. This album doesn't just challenge Drake. It challenges the entire system. The machine. The executives who believe they can control what the world hears and what it never will. This isn't about winning a rap feud anymore. It's about exposing the playbook. And no malice? His return has weight. After years of silence, he's back with fire in his chest and clarity in his voice. Lines that cut like scripture. Themes of accountability, of censorship, of righteous revenge. July 11th isn't just a drop date, it's Judgment Day. And if Chains and Whips is on the album, with Kendrick's verse untouched, that moment could shatter the last wall between truth and industry illusion. But there's one thing still hanging in the air. One person who hasn't made their final move. And one final silence. That could end everything. As the clock ticks down to July 11th, one truth stands tall. This is no longer about one diss track or one album. It's about control, about narrative, about whether the music industry belongs to the artists or the empire behind the curtain. All eyes are now on Drake. For all the lawsuits, the whispers, the alleged power plays, he's never said a word about Chains and Whips. He hasn't addressed the censorship. He hasn't denied it. He's just silent. Some Believe he's waiting, watching, ready to strike once more. Maybe with a counter project. Maybe with pressure behind the scenes. Maybe with something bigger than anyone expects. But if he doesn't move, if he allows "Let God Sort Him Out" to land with Kendrick's verse fully restored, it will signal something else, that he lost control. Because if that track drops unedited, the conversation shifts forever. The empire weakens, the artist win, and the questions no one wanted to answer? They'll be echoing in every corner of the industry. So now we're left with one final question. Will the industry continue silencing its most dangerous voices? Or are we finally about to hear everything they were never supposed to say?